All right, so my name is Abhishek Mukherjee. I'm I would say, a budding photographer, a Photoshop guy, a retoucher. I'm still with Adobe, almost 6 years now, and they're still holding me back. I'm still waiting for my salary today, so there's a couple of things which I may not be showing you today because I have not been paid for that now. All right, and it's very interesting. Before I actually come here, the marketing team always makes sure that the collaterals are always there. I don't know how. All right, so let me just quickly start about it. So you can obviously always find me at Behance. I'm very much active in Behance, and my Behance ID is behance.net/Abhishek Mukherjee. I generally keep posting pictures and videos of how to do post-processing and how you can change certain scenes to another scene. Now, when we talk about post-processing, there are a couple of things, and I'm sure there are a couple of guys over here would agree with me that that is unethical. I can't do post-processing. That is something not right, right? And I'm sure you must have heard about the same thing itself. Well, the answer to that is, it is ethical and unethical depending upon the outcome. What do you want to do with that, right? If you actually go ahead, shoot an elephant, and remove the elephant's trunk, and put a saber tooth over there, that is unethical, correct? But if you go ahead and try to take a shot of a sunset, where since you have not shot multiple exposures, there's only one exposure that you have. You want to enhance what you see over there. That's what is called an ethical post-processing. So why do we need post-processing? To answer that, the very first fundamental question is, the best camera in the world till date is your own human eye. The best processing power of that human eye is your brain. So not even a camera or a Canon which has a Digic 6 processor or the Nikon processor can actually match the power of your brain. That is why if you look at the sunrise or if you look at the sun straight, you can still see all the surroundings very clearly. Your camera can't do that. And that's exactly we use post-processing for, to bring what your eyes actually seen to actual picture of your hair. So let me just quickly show you what post-processing can do and things that you should be doing it, you should not be doing it. So let me just bring up Lightroom over here. And let me just make it okay. Let me just quickly once again. There you go. So that's my Lightroom. Anybody use Lightroom over here? Wow, my job is half done over here. Anyone use Photoshop over here? Awesome, guys. I don't even have to do anything over here, right? All right, so this is the picture that I shot in Bali itself, and that's how the image looks like, right? But was this the actual thing that my eyes saw? It could be, it may not be. Because it is dark, I may not be able to see the sky properly. But yes, since they were all surrounding the lights inside over there, I could have actually seen the important part of the entire scene over here. What post-processing can help me do over here is actually get the scene which actually seen over there itself. So if I just show you the editor version, that's what the editor version looks like. So what you're actually doing is you're actually painting back or getting or recovering details that your camera has actually captured, but it's not able to show you as of now. Why? Because that could be a RAW file. Now that's another question. Do I shoot in RAW or do I shoot in JPEG? If I shoot in RAW, my memory card gets filled very quickly. If I shoot in JPG, I can shoot very quickly, and with the new Nikon and Canon apps, I can actually send pictures directly from there to Facebook or anywhere else, right? So what is the basic difference between RAW and a JPG file? A RAW image is nothing, but it controls everything that a camera has captured. So right from your luminous value, right from your exposure, right from the white balance to sharpness, every detail is being captured in RAW. And it just gives you an open method or a plethora of options to get back details that you want from there. The moment I convert that image into a JPG file, which you generally do it from a smartphone, you click pictures and JPGs, even though the phones are getting better and better. But then that's how it is. But when you take JPG, your information gets locked. The moment information gets locked, if you want to go ahead and increase certain things from there, the tools will start filling in details which is not available there. And that is why there are limitations of post-processing on a JPG file. And that is why every professional photographer will tell you that shoot in RAW. And don't worry about anything, just click shoot in RAW. Why? Because they know that they can get the actual scene that you've seen in the tools itself for post-processing. So post-processing is a very essential way to do it. I can spend hours and hours talking about post-processing that I do. I'm not sure if any of you actually attended one of my webinars that we do with Adobe a lot, in which we cater to landscape photography, to macro photography, and various other photography channels and genres in which we can use post-processing on. I'm not going to go deep down to each and every aspect what you can do, but then a couple of things I would talk about over here that how Lightroom or post-processing can help you with. And I hope you don't mind me sitting over here because it's very difficult to go down and come up. All right. So this is, okay, I have not connected that. Sorry about that. There you go. And I generally use a pen tablet, and this is the Intuos 4 Pro that I'm using over here. I don't use mouse because somehow or other I'm not able to control the mouse properly. But then while using it, you might have a problem to connect, but then it's been all set now. Okay. So let me just take you through a couple of things that you have in post-processing. So as of now, if you see, these are all the images that you generally get in your library itself, which is your Lightroom. Now, I always started on with Photoshop first because that is my love. Okay, I love Photoshop. Why? Because it gives me immense power to control any image or combine two different images together. I used to always post-process single image in your Photoshop itself. But the biggest challenge in using that in Photoshop, and that's where the workflow comes in, that's where you will start realizing the important details about Lightroom and Photoshop, is in Photoshop, you open one image, do the entire part, save it. Save it as a PSD file or a JPG file or a TIFF file. One by one. If you go ahead and shoot a lot of landscape pictures, you have to open each image one by one, then do it, right? Where in Lightroom, I can import all the pictures and I can select what pictures I want to keep for my post-processing. What I don't like, I can remove them. And once I do that, I can now select each an image there itself and start editing it. The best part is, if I use or work on Photoshop, it becomes very hard for me to see a before and after because I have to copy the actual layer first and put it on the topmost layer and unhide it. I have to do that every time. With the help of Lightroom, it's just a backslash button which I can show a preview of before and after of whatever I do. So if I come back over here, and let me just try to open, getting the filters to be flagged. So flagged are the images that I've actually have selected to work on with. Now, this is another image that you oversee as of now. You see how the stars are showing up, the lens blur is coming up over there. But if you see the actual image, which never had that detail, that was an actual image. If you want to see the information about the lens itself, so that's been shot. That's been a long exposure shot of 30 seconds. An ISO that I've done for 50 itself, but it's just gone ahead and used the 24 the length that I've used. But then what has happened over here is, it can capture all the details, but it needs your intervention to bring out those details that you want to show. As of now, this image is straight out of the camera. And with the help of this, I'm just going to hide the information. And that's what the image has come up with. So all these beautiful things over here, it actually helps you to work on with your image directly from here. So for example, let me just go ahead and start to work on with another image right in front of you. Again, have a look at this image, right? Looks vibrant, the colors are natural, it's coming up very popular, this looks very saturated. Why would I need this? Because I might want to go ahead and take a print of it. But if you also see, on your right hand side, you see that there's certain changes that I've actually gone ahead and done. That was the original image. So that's what your Photoshop and your Lightroom helps you to do on. So let me just go ahead and now open up a couple of images that I would going to work on with. And I'm going to open another library that I have, which is a catalog. So I'm going to get the Lightroom closed and then open up again with a fresh catalog that I've actually worked on with. And quickly, let's go ahead and start working on a couple of images that you really want to go ahead and make some changes or make the effect out of it. The very first thing, if you see that this is the image that I have, now if you look at the image as of now, okay, this image of the flower has a blur to it. And that happens a lot. This is because of camera shake. This means that whenever you try to take a picture, you have positioned the camera properly, could be on a tripod, could be on your hand, and you're about to press the shutter, the camera just moves. And that's where you get a blur over here, right? In landscape photography, it's easy to fix it. Why? Because you have another option to go ahead and click again. But if you're doing a wildlife photography, or if you're doing wildscapes, that could be a chance that that image that you shot may not be again the same way till you have to wait for a longer period again. Because of which, I've never removed this image from here, so all I have to do is kept it over here, and that's a complex kind of work that I'm going to do. So I'm going to say right-click from here, and I say edit, and I can open this file directly in Photoshop. So I have Photoshop opened over here, and let me just go ahead and bring up the file. And that's the file that I have over here. So all I have to do to fix this is I just go to Filter, go to Sharpen, and I say Shake Reduction. Photoshop is so intelligently built that you know what metadata are, right? The information that comes from every click that you take on your cameras, and the information pasted over there. So it carries the information about your lens, it carries information about the aperture, the shutter speed, everything. And that's what the profile information comes over there. And if I just say sharpen and shake reduction, it automatically analyzes it and fixes it for you. So once the image is fixed, I can take it back to Lightroom to start enhancing colors out of it. Now, is this an unethical post-processing? I consider it not. Why? Because my intent was to capture the flower. I've not gone ahead and removed the flower or put a cactus plant over here. I've not gone ahead and removed this color from here and put some other vibrant color over here. I've not taken this flower and put Deepika Padukone's hair from here. I've not done that. So for me, it is ethical post-processing. Let me just go back from here and come back to Lightroom once again. Couple of details that you see over here, they are all been done using Photoshop itself and Lightroom. So that's the mixture of images that's been done using Photoshop and Lightroom itself. And that's how you enhance certain colors coming up directly from there itself. Now, if I talk about this image as of now, so that was the image before, and that's how you change it. So you create dynamic lighting to an image using post-processing itself. So before going further, I'm going to take a quick example of how to enhance certain images. Now, for example, this is the image that I have, and you really want to go ahead and try to find out what's there in the image. Now, if I actually tell you that you'll see a flag of England in this image, there's a sign of no smoking in the image, you will not believe me, right? Now, this is a JPG file. So the reason I've got a JPG file because I was in San Francisco clicking these images, and my memory card was full. There was another memory card that I had, but I wanted to capture images, so I quickly captured these using my converting the JPG file itself. But if I want to get details out of it, can I do that? So whenever you walk into a dark room, what is that one thing you rely on? Anyone? All right, let me make it easy for you. A flashlight, is that correct? You generally go ahead and look for your mobile phone and find out where the flashlight is, and switch it on, then you walk, right? This is exactly what I can do over here and actually use certain tools of mine to enhance a couple of things over here. The very first thing is, if I just want to see certain things inside, I can actually go ahead now. If you look carefully over here, I'm going to zoom in a bit. That's the no smoking sign that is there over there itself. And right behind, if you see, there's a England flag coming in. Now, why am I able to do this? How am I able to do this? It is because the tool's offering you a couple of things which is actually going ahead and filling the information that is there in the image, but it's not post-processed yet. The information is locked for you, but it's not being used to show what you want to see over here. Similarly, if I just remove it or delete from here, or if I just do it the other way around over here, I want to do the entire image, I can quickly go ahead and increase my exposure from here. I can play around with the contrast a bit and use a clarity to give a depth to it. So that's the before with the lights off, and that's after with the lights on. This is what post-processing is. You generally go ahead and try to get images to show it the exact way that you actually seen at the site when you start using the cameras over there. Couple of things. Let me just talk about this image. All right. Now, this image looks good for me because it's got a nice blue sky. The building, the house looks proper. But for me, it's not the same thing, because when I shot this image, I actually saw a good contrast between the sky and the white sign at the bottom. So I want to get that back on. So I just have to take this image back into Lightroom, and a couple of information what Lightroom intelligently provides to you is right over here, which is called the histogram over here. People who know histogram, good. If you're not sure, that's all right, because that's a little technical, so I'm going to tell you what it is. It's very simple. So as of now, my informations are switched off. The one which is at the right, this triangle, this takes care of anything which is overexposed, which has more than the white light than it has supposed to be there. This triangle talks about areas which are underexposed, means the darker areas. So if I click on this part and if I click on this part, as of now you'll see there's no change in the image. However, if I quickly go ahead and start increasing the exposure, you see the red line starts coming in. That is the indication that at this point of the time, I should stop increasing the exposure. Why? Because it is just going out of the color range that is supposed to be there in the actual scene. Similarly, if I lower down the exposure, you will see the blue lines coming over here. This tells me that these areas are basically underexposed. So a lot of time when you work on with these images, you get dark images. And if you see or look carefully at the bottom over here, it says that these areas are underexposed. So I can quickly go ahead and increase this area up, or probably I can increase the blacks up a bit to get rid of the file. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually getting the light or the information on the ground right over there. But doing that, I do see that the sky is also fading out. So I want to control the sky over here. I can quickly do that by bringing down my highlights. And also, I can quickly go ahead and get my highlights down from there itself. All right, so let's get back to this image itself when we talked about. And what I'm doing with this particular image over here, how much time do I have? Okay, all right. Okay, so if I want to make this picture a little better that I see, because a lot of times you must have seen that, yeah, this guy actually shot the same scene on the same camera that I have, same lenses that I use, the same lens settings that I had, but how come his pictures looks different? How come his picture is there in, I also have the same picture in 500 pixels or 500px, but he has so many likes over there, not mine. Why? Because this guy is actually going ahead and captured the image and edited it in a way that it's actually training the user's eye to focus on the areas or look on the areas on the image that you want him to see, which your image is not doing. Because it's a flat image, if you just close your eyes for a second and then open up, you will actually see that first your eyes goes right at the sand, then it goes on the cloud, and on the church over here or the house over here, it comes towards last. Why? Because all those highlights areas is capturing your eyes. So you generally have to go ahead and narrow all down and train the user's eye to see what you want them to see. And how I do that? It's very simple. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and bring the highlights down. So it gives a nice pop on the sky itself. Rule of thumb that I follow is the amount of shadow that I increase from here is the same thing that I decrease the blacks from here. Once I do that, I can now come back over here and I would probably increase the vibrance just a bit and increase the clarity to give a depth to it. The picture is already changed from the first image that we actually saw over there. Next is my turn to go ahead and increase the sharpness to a couple of areas. But I don't want the sharpness to actually go ahead and increase even the skies and the cloud as well. Because if I have a very smooth gradient of the cloud, that's considered to be a very good picture. So all I can do now is come right over here, and I have the sharpening option. I can increase or decrease the sharpening, but I don't want the sharpen to go everywhere. So I just press my Alt key, and with the help of the masking tool, the mask now tells me where you want to sharpen. Anything which you see in black are the areas which is ignored, will not be sharpened. Anything which is in white will be sharpened. So I'm going to bring it more high because I just want to sharpen the areas of the house itself, not the sky. So I'm going to keep it to something over here, and now I will increase the sharpness over there. So that's how you quickly go ahead and make those changes in Lightroom itself. The next part of doing or making changes in Lightroom is if I open these images together, you can also now stitch images to make a panorama shot. Okay, I'm sure everybody knows what panorama shots are. They are nothing but you take different angle shots and then stitch them together. Stitching them together in Photoshop is a tedious task because you have to use with different aligns. But now we also have the camera option of using it, the HDR merge option. However, in Lightroom, it's very easy to do it. The reason is you will not find it there on your smartphone because you know that you take out your iPhone or any phone, you click there and you take an entire circle, you have the entire scene coming in. The stitching is done in the background itself using the software. And it crops almost a lot of space over there. With the help of Lightroom, I'm going to show you what we can do over here is, so I have these images right over here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, all these images. I'm going to select all these images. Right click it. And sorry about that, I'm going to open it in the other browser. Just 1 second. Oh, I think I have closed that part. Yeah. So let me show you with this image. That image is a smart preview that I have. This means that I can edit those images, but they are not actually placed on my hard drive. Those are just the virtual copies that I was editing over there. That's not the actual image, the virtual copy. So this means that if I make those edits, and the moment I connect my hard drive, all the edits that I've done will automatically transfer to the main final image itself. And why we do it is a lot of these photographers, they travel a lot, and they want to carry and make those changes while they travel. That's why we do it. But let me just show you the stitching part over here. So this is the image that I have, and I will actually go ahead and start working on with this image itself. Do a right click. Oops, I'm sorry about that. That happens. I think I did not play the demo god today. Okay, nevertheless, let's do something else in that case, guys. Let me go back to Photoshop, and this is what we do in Photoshop and not Lightroom. So this was the actual image. That was the actual image that was shot. And that's what we have made the image. Okay, so that's an album cover that I've designed. And if you see all these layers that is there at the bottom over here, these are the layers that helps you to go ahead and control any kind of work that you do with different layers set itself. Now I'm going to show you one unique thing that we'll be doing it over here, which is enhancing this scene. And we will be making this scene something come up alive, something like this. So you enhance the entire night scene. I consider this little bit something which is like a dynamic light that we do over here, which you may or you may not be doing it, and that's what, it depends upon what kind of shots of photography that you work on, you'll be doing it, and if they allow it. For example, if I get into a concert, not a concert, sorry, if I get into a competition in which it's basically about street photography, and I may not be doing this. But if the contest is basically about dynamic lighting or advanced lighting of street, I will be doing because I enhance the entire exposure of scenes. What you will see now is the couple of things I'm going to show you that may help you to post-process your images either in Photoshop or in Lightroom. And these are techniques that you can use to enhance certain part over here. In order to do that, I'm going to unhide this. I'm going to hide this layer itself, come back to this layer, and go to Filter and say Camera Raw. All the edits I'll be doing it will be on this part itself. I'm not going to go open up any other layer. Everything going to be done over here. So the very first thing is, since I want to give it a nice night mood or scene to it, I know that the exposures are okay, but the blue sky is way too much. I'm going to bring down the blue sky a little bit lower. So I'm going to decrease the exposure amount from here. So let me just decrease the exposure a bit. Don't worry about if the entire scene gets dark, because that's what post-processing helps you do. So let me just bring the exposure down a little amount over here. Similarly, I'm going to bring the blacks down over here itself. What I really want to do now is, the red light which says hotel, I know that the actual scene, the red was actually glowing on the nearby areas where the light was actually falling, which has not been captured in the camera properly. But I want to make that scene come alive. So I have this wonderful tool, which is something which is the adjustment brush tool over here. With the help of the brush tool, I would go ahead and make those changes. So I'm going to go ahead, change the color, bring in a red color over here, and I would quickly start painting certain things around. Don't worry if the colors are going out for toss, because you have the control points to help you with the color itself. Once I do that, I know what has happened over here, so I'm going to increase the haze right over there, increase the exposure a bit, add a little bit of contrast. That's all I do. The lights which is falling over here, I want to enhance that light. So again, I would say a new brush right from here. Go down, take the colors, a yellow tone that I have, and probably start painting the color over here. And also something right at the other end. So that's how you add colors to different things that you have. So that's how I'm going to add different colors. So that's the way you generally go ahead and start working on with your Photoshop Lightroom using the camera raw filter. The other part, or the very small thing, will add a little lighting dynamic over here. So I'm going to just increase the light over here. I have everything kept. I'm just going to place it right at this part over here. The moment I do that, the surroundings will actually have the same lights that you see over here will come up over there. And that's how the colors have been placed over there. If I click on OK now, you will see a drastic change between the actual image and the image that's been done over here. So let me just quickly go ahead and do an open over here, and it just applies the entire thing. The best part is whatever I'm doing is it's not affecting the actual image or the actual pixels of the image. It is just doing everything on a separate layer altogether. It's not affecting the pixels of your image. You don't have to worry about that, my actual image or the original image got changed. You don't have to go ahead and keep multiple copies of the original image in one specific folder कि यार इसको कुछ ना हो जाए. It just takes care of the entire thing. If you see that right at the bottom, you'll see another layer that pops out, which is a white layer, which will have all my effects on that specific layer itself. While it does that, Anybody knows what's the price of Photoshop as of now? All right, one question I'd love to ask. Who has a genuine version of Photoshop who is using over here? People whose hands are down, I think everything's been recorded over here. Oh, the lights are on, fantastic. Can we have the lights on the audience over here? People only who has a genuine version of Photoshop, hands up. Wow. So you are one of those 98.6% pirated users of Adobe Photoshop in India. Well, I understand and I don't know why it was there because Photoshop initially was somewhere around 46,000 plus taxes just to use a version. Then you have to buy Photoshop and then have to wait for another 18 months, 24 months, 36 months to get a newer version. Lightroom that time was somewhere around 22,000, right? The entire Creative Cloud, not the Creative Cloud now, but the entire Creative Suite was 2.5 lakh rupees, right? That's the price of an Alto that you can buy. But the lights can be switched off, guys. But now, just to make sure that you guys can actually go ahead and use the power of these tools, Adobe has actually gone down the price a lot, all right? So people who still thinks it's around 40, 45 grands, you know, and you'd rather go and spend on a nice big lens, it's not like that anymore. Who goes ahead and spends somewhere around, say, 6,000 in a year for movies and eating out and going to clubs? Anyone? Just that side of the room? Come on, guys, I need more hands. I'm sure you spend more than that. Buying clothes? Buying perfumes? Spending on wife. There you go, yeah. All right, so now you can have Photoshop. You can have Lightroom. Full version, not the demo version, full version, with constant updates of new features. You also have the Lightroom mobile tools, which now supports DNG format or RAW format directly on your Android mobile as well. iOS is always there. You also have a couple of other apps which help you to click pictures, make some changes, and start editing Photoshop directly. All these, either you pay upfront, say pay 6,000, forget about the entire year, or you can pay every month by just paying $499. And that's the entire version of the entire photography plan that we have as of now, which you can actually go and buy. I did take a picture of everybody who has not raised their hands, so I'm going to take it back to my office and say, guys, look at this. Let's identify these guys now. Let us have drones all over them now. All right, so that is basically what I had, and a couple of things you can certainly go ahead and start working on with, and you can download and check. One second, yeah. You can actually start downloading and working on these images and start using these tools to see how tools can help you out. If you need any other further question, I'm not going deep down over here, but I'm here for some time. I have to again rush back to another place. Boy, the traffic in Bangalore from my Adobe office to this place took almost the same time it took me from Delhi to here in the flight. All right, so that is all about from me and mine. If you want, you can have always follow me on Behance itself. You can send me requests on LinkedIn. Facebook, you can, but it depends upon if I'm going to say interesting thing I want to add. Along with that, you can always register to adobe.com itself with the India, which is Adobe India, and you'll be always be sent email reminders about our new photography events that's coming on. Anyone over here is a budding photographer for fashion. Anyone who likes fashion photography? No, then it's not relevant to you guys. But then we are having a new show with Dabu Ratnani, who's one of the best celebrity fashion photographer. And we'll be doing a post-processing commercial photography experience webinar with this guy very soon. So if you can follow us on Adobe India's page itself, you'll be notified with everything. So thank you guys. Any questions? I'm here. Anyone, any questions? Yes. I'm sorry? Good question. How many users, right? Okay, fantastic question. How many citizens are there in India? Any idea? Anyone? Right? A lot, right? Right? You can't even count, right? So I don't know how many zeros are there in the end. So before we went to subscription, We were 99.8% pirated before we went to subscription. We got into subscription in the year 2012 for the photography plan and everything. Now we are at a rate of 88.6%. So imagine the amount of decrease that has happened in using the pirated goods for Adobe itself. Why? It's more affordable. Come on, yeah, the entire India lives in EMI, right? So it's almost the same thing. And it's more affordable for you guys to work on with. The best part is now you don't even have to wait for almost 20 months or 24 months to get a new version. What Adobe is doing is any new creative feature that comes in, it just pushes to you directly from there. And you as a subscriber, you just get the new feature. Like for example, I've just got one last thing to show them. All right. What I'm going to show you is unethical. Okay? This is unethical, guys. Remember, this is unethical, but this is what the new features come in over here. Okay? I want some action in this image, right? So I know the elephant is there, very blatantly standing with the trunk down. There's no action, right? And in order to make him do some actions, I need to do two things. Either I take a risk of going down and asking him to go ahead, you know what, why don't you lift your trunk? If he hears me, he does it. I can be the next animal whisperer, I'm telling you. If he doesn't, I just have to pay $4.99 a month, open the same image on my Photoshop, and get any action done out of it. You want to see how I do that? It's very simple. So all I do is, I use this quick selection tool that I have and do a quick selection of the elephant. Or do we say the Jumbo Maharaja over here? That's been done, right? Now I go to File, Edit, Puppet Warp. When I do Puppet Warp, okay? Now, if I show you this, you're not replacing the Western Ghats with the Himalayas. You're not doing that. I will go ahead and put some anchor points. Why? Because even though Photoshop is intelligent, but the brain behind Photoshop is a human brain, and we have to at least tell Photoshop, you know what, whatever I do, don't affect these areas. Once I do that, even if the Jumbo doesn't know how to speak to me or hears me, has a good arrogant, and he doesn't want to just put his tongue down, I can do anything that I want. I can leave it till here, and all I do is click it, and that's the new image that I have. So that's what Photoshop can do for you guys. So this feature was actually bought in because when we spoke to a lot of fashion photographers, and they shoot fashion photos, and when the ramp walk happens, it's only once that you can click the image, because the models are paid for every walk, okay? And you have to click the image when that same ramp or she or he walks over there. They want to capture the garments, they want to capture the hand, everything. So a lot of times the hand goes like this, the hand goes like that, and the garment's coming. So that's when we realize we need something like this, and that's how we use to actually correct the posture of the models walking on the ramp. But we Indians have a creative bent of mind. Anybody is a left brainer. We tend to mix towards the right, and we try to use the same feature as a jugaad in something else. So we have done this over here and do the same thing over here itself. There are a couple of interesting things as well, but I think we are running short of time itself. So thank you so much, guys, and it's been a pleasure to be here and seeing everyone, budding photographer here. And one last question I'm going to ask you is, anyone feels negative about a Canon 7D Mark II, or is that a good investment? I'm only into very fast sports photography and action photography. Do you think it's a good bet? All right, so I'll be getting my order delivered probably by the end of Monday. Awesome. So thank you so much, guys. Thanks a lot, and it's been a pleasure.